All right, welcome to the December 6th, 2023 Zoning Advisory Commission meeting. Going to have three action items tonight. We'd like to call the meeting to order and then have the roll call of attendees.
Yes. Christ,
Here.
Mulligan is excused. Norton,
Here.
Russell, Zucchero,
Here.
Lorman.
Here.
All right, at this time, I'd like to confirm that we are in compliance with the Iowa Open Meetings Law.
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you. The next item is the approval of the minutes. We have two separate meeting minutes to approve. The first is November 2nd. Are there any?
Vice Chair Russell, I'm so sorry. If you could, this is actually the November 1st meeting. That was a Scribner's error in the agenda there. We do have the appropriate meeting minutes attached from the November 1st
Okay,
meeting. It was on the
so-
1st, not the 2nd.
First item is the November 1st, 2023 minutes. Any corrections or additions to those minutes?
Can I just make a motion to approve both in one shot, or do we have to do them separate?
They should be separate, please. Thank you.
Any additions or corrections? Is there
So
a motion?
motion to approve the November 1st, 2023 minutes?
A second.
Motion by Zaccaro, second by Christ.
Christ,
Aye.
Lorman,
Abstain. I did not attend.
Norton,
Aye.
Zucchero,
Aye.
Russell.
Aye. Next are the minutes from the November 29th special meeting, 2023 special meeting. Any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Second?
Lorman,
Aye.
Norton,
I'm gonna abstain.
Zucchero,
Aye.
Christ,
Aye.
Russell.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, now we'll move on to the action items. The first is a minor subdivision of the, described as the final plat of Lynx Glen Place Number 2. Is the applicant here, and would they like to make a presentation?
Thank you. My name is Ed Henry. I'm the attorney for Lynx Glen.
And Ed,
Mr. Henry.
go to the podium, please.
New at this. And just happy to present. I think that the information contained in your summary is great, with one caveat. It references this as being one lot that's being subdivided. There actually already are three lots. This replat simply moves the lot lines on lots 2 and 3 closer to Wartburg, making those lots a little bit smaller and conforming to the streets as built.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the commission for the applicant? All right, thanks.
Great, thank you.
Staff report by Jason.
Thank you. Assistant Planner Jason Duba. Thank you for the correction to the report. There will be 3 lots again after this plat is completed. Lot 1 is the largest of about 8.2 acres, and it contains 18 existing residential homes. Lots 2 and 3 are the ones closest to Wartburg Place, and Lot 2 is about 0.83 acres. Lot 3 is about 0.91 acres. These are currently undeveloped, and the plat will allow them to be developed in the future. They're zoned planned residential, and the city's comprehensive plan identifies housing of various types as beneficial to the community. Thank you.
All right, any discussion or questions from the commission?
No? Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the final plat of Lynx Glen Place Number 2.
Second?
Norton,
Aye.
Zucchero,
Aye.
Christ,
Aye.
Lorman,
Aye.
Russell.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to recuse myself from the next two items.
All right, thanks, Pat. The next item it is discussing 781 Locust, a request to waive some site design standards.
Good evening. My name is Pat Norton. I'm with Beasing and Associates at 1212 Locust Street. Tonight, we are here representing Cottingham and Butler in regards to their new childcare facility that is being proposed at the location of the former Joliet Hall, which I can say former now since I believe it's pretty much gone. But anyway, in preparing the concepts for the site, we identified that there were two items that we were having issues with meeting from the UDC. The first one is the parking buffers that are required, the 10-foot buffer between the right-of-way line and the parking lot on the right-of-way. And then the second one would be the landscape requirements. The parking buffers, oh, I'm sorry, it doesn't count the alley? Okay, my mistake. So anyway, they're actually on two sides then, 8th Street and Locust Street. This is kind of an odd situation in that, yes, it's a parking lot, but it's also a building. This is a parking lot tucked underneath the building, so the second floor of this building will actually be over the parking lot. Buildings in these districts are allowed a 0-foot setback, I believe, and therefore they can build right up to the property line. But since it's a parking lot under the building, that's kind of where we ran into some of the issues here, and we believed it was worthy of asking for a variance. So anyway, if we did have to put the buffers in, we would lose over half of our parking stalls in this lot that's intended to be for just pick up and drop off use for the daycare only. There's going to be no staff, no parking all day long. It's just going to be real short, 10-minute kind of pick up, drop off of the kids. So anyway, that's the gist of the parking buffers. And the second one is the landscape requirements. Currently, this site has 0 green space on it. I mean, the existing site is a parking lot. Starting at the south end, there's a parking lot, there's a building, and then there's a parking lot. As required by state requirements, just to put a daycare in, you do have to create green space, and in doing so, we will, but we just won't be able to meet the green space for, wait, I'm sorry, that was already approved. The landscaping requirements, I'm sorry. The landscaping requirements that are required usually refer to the green space, and then there's so many trees and so many shrubs required. The intent is to put in the green space. However, the shrubs and the trees would take away from the space that the kids could use in their outside play area. So again, we are hoping to make this better. We will be making it better than it currently exists. It's just not, we won't be adding trees and bushes to that end. So, Benjamin, did you have any?
Yeah, if I could. So my name is Benjamin Beard with Straka Johnson Architects, 355 Digital Drive, Dubuque, Iowa, 52003. Thank you, members of the commission and city staff, for your time tonight. I just wanted to start with a little bit of context. Sheena, could you go to the broader kind of site image? We felt it was important just to point out that this project will be the anchor for a broader redevelopment of the entire block. The Duma Museum is in the process of kind of a broader design process right now with their architect. We'll make up the northeast corner of that block. The new museum property will make up the other 3 quarters. So this will kind of look and feel kind of like a campus. It's not meant to be integral. Each of the 4 corners of the block will have kind of a separate feel. But this project does kind of form the anchor of that. We also want to point out the significance of the child care project in general. We're a huge shortage right now with child care across the city and the region, continuing to trend down. This project's going to provide an awesome lifeline for working families and employees, providing 188 child care slots. The focus will be on Cottingham Butler employees at first, but as child care slots become available, those will be offered to the public. So the building, as Pat pointed out, is comprised of 2 stories. It's about 20,000 square feet in total. 3 infant rooms, 3 ones rooms, 3 twos rooms, 2 threes rooms, and 2 pre-K rooms. And those are complemented by a gross motor skills area, a STEM room, and then a full food service kitchen. The operator for the site is a Minnesota-based company called New Horizon Academy, and they focus their child care programs on kind of a whole child approach where they're enhancing that child care experience with age-appropriate STEM-based learning, and they're also supplementing with a nutritional lifestyle approach, so they support that through the food service kitchen. That's a repeatable model that they've used throughout Minnesota, and that's starting to come into Iowa here. So that's kind of the building. Then I wanted to just reiterate a thought on the site here. If you could pull up our site plan. The site's broken into roughly thirds. The north part of the site is the parking area, of course. We went to great lengths to make sure we were minimizing the pervious surface of the site and maximizing the green space on the site, as Pat pointed out. The angled parking is an example of that. It's as restrictive as it can possibly be based on UDC and SUDAS guidelines. The middle third of the site, of course, is the building footprint, and then the south third is the play area. That is regulated in part by the state. So the state says you need X number of square feet per kid for about 30% of the children using the playground. So they exclude infants and 1-year-olds from that calculation. Around the playground will be a screening feature that will provide privacy and protection mainly. So I wanted to, so kind of compare that to the existing site, as Pat pointed out, is the former KC Hall. Right now, if you go to the aerial of that, this is what it would have looked like a couple weeks ago. But you had the parking on the north, the KC Hall in the middle, and then a larger parking area to the south. So, as you'd expect to see in an urban setting, lot lines are nil, parking goes right up to the sidewalks or the right-of-way. This is the case for the parking ramp to the north, Roshek to the east, the U.S. Bank to the southeast, and, just being part of an urban context, there's a myriad other examples of that in the neighborhood. So we wanted, to look at it from, what are some enhancements or improvements that we're providing to the site to kind of offset what we're asking for tonight. One of those, as Pat pointed out, is the parking lot on the north side is transient in nature, so it won't have parking long term. There will be a drop-off period in the morning, a pickup period in the evening, and other than that, staff are required to park in the parking ramp across the street. Furthermore, the building being cantilevered out over the parking below has a row of columns along 8th Street, and maybe there you go. The rendering would help. So that, it kind of, I won't say it replaces a screen, but it kind of helps provide an implied facade of the building there that overhangs the parking area, aligning with the back of the right-of-way. So, I felt, that was worth pointing out as well. And then the enhancement of the south part of the site with the play area. We're meeting the regulatory guidelines for the play area. We're meeting the improvement from the Zoning Board of Adjustments for the minimum required green space. And, that's an improvement from what's there today. So I know I threw a lot at you there, just underscoring, the importance of this moment for the city, and look forward to your comments. So.
Any questions or comments?
It looks like a great design. We'll be glad to have it in Dubuque. Will the play areas be turf or grass?
Yeah, so to be determined. One of the cool things about New Horizon Academy is they, everything they do is based on best practice. So safety, obviously, the play area, super critical. No matter what we do, we have to be mindful of the play zone or the fall zones around the equipment. To answer the question, we're planning on turf. So that would be the first thought. Although engineered wood chips are acceptable too, from that standpoint. So.
I do have a couple questions. As far as the parking, because it's under the building, is it considered part of the building as far as the building code goes?
Well, I don't think so. We are required to sprinkle below the building. That's a good question. Like, from what angle are you thinking?
It wouldn't include the square footage of the building.
Yeah,
I mean, it
and it's
wouldn't be-
part of the coverage of the site for sure. And so that was part of a ZBA request on the 16th.
I guess it was another way to justify the distance to the north property line. If it's part of the building, then it's like any other building.
Oh, I like your reasoning there. Because it's part of the coverage, does it? Oh, yeah, sure, Pat.
When we were making the application, I talked this through with Sheena pretty in-depthly. And whether it is or not, we weren't sure either. But what we came up with was, this is the safe route of at least asking for the variance at this point. In reality, what's the difference between this and the parking garage across the street? That goes right up to the property line. The only difference is there's a wall there. That's really the only difference between what we're asking, what is here versus what's across the street. Across the street, yeah, it would be building code. Here, it's kind of ambiguous.
As far as that last point, I guess the difference is the parking garage is existing in this, the new code applies to this building.
I understand, but what I'm saying is let's just say you entered in through a overhead door, went into the garage, door shut, you're in an enclosed space, we wouldn't have to talk about buffers and that sort of thing because it would be parking garage. That was my point. I'm not saying.
Okay. The second question is, could you guys talk about ADA compliance with the?
Yep.
I guess it probably isn't germane to rezoning, but I'm curious.
Yeah, no problem.
With the playground specifically.
With the what?
The playground?
The playground, sure. Could you go to the site plan for us? Yeah, so ADA compliance is a given, but one of the ways we're going to address that, Pat, there's like a 3-foot fall from the northwest corner to the southeast corner, something like that. We're going to essentially level the site, which means we're going to be raising up the southeast corner of the play area so that it's relatively flat to the building. So our ADA compliant stall in the parking area leads to an accessible route into the building. And then through the building, of course, is accessible onto the playground. Furthermore, one of those best practices I talked about, there are ADA compliant features across the playground. So that's very much part of the playground itself, and then the requirements of the building are part of that. ADA also requires, and this might be kind of a code issue, but they require that 60% of the doors into the building be compliant, which in a case where you have 3, that means 2 of them need to be. I'll point out that all of the entries into the building are compliant, so exceeding that minimum threshold.
Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Staff report?
Yes, thank you.
Sheena?
Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Vice Chair. So Sheena Moon, Associate Planner. So the applicant did a great job of outlining the project overall. So I'm going to dive right into what the code requires and talk a little bit about what they're asking for a waiver from this evening. Primarily, there are 2 different criteria in the Unified Development Code that the applicant is seeking a waiver from this evening, and they touched on them. I'm going to go a little bit deeper in depth just to kind of highlight the specifics. So the first that I will talk about is actually going to be the minimum landscaping tree and shrub requirement. So for when looking at this site and evaluating the number of trees and shrubs that would be required, we took a look at what the applicant is proposing the site to be, right? There's going to be some reconfiguration of property that will increase the lot size a little bit. So in looking at that, the code would require a minimum of 3 trees and 6 shrubs on the property. And the applicant is seeking a full waiver from those. They are intending currently not to place trees or shrubs on the property. So that's item 1. Item 2 has to do specifically with these landscape buffer yards, and I want to talk about 2 separate criteria that we have with the city. First is the code requirement. So the code requires that there be and I'm going to pull up my exhibit here while I'm talking about this, that there be a 10-foot landscape buffer along the side of the parking areas that would be along the street. And the applicant at one point this evening had questioned whether they also needed that waiver along the alley. And we did not anticipate that waiver being required along the alley because that is actually intended to be part of their property in the future. So if that were to change, we would have to readdress that issue with the commission. But in consideration of what the property will be, we took a look at what the requirements of waivers would need to be. So again, this buffer yard requirement would be 10 feet along in the red zones that you see here, so along that parking area. And this is an approximate, this red boxes are approximate depths based on just kind of trying to measure it out based on the site plan here. So that's what the Unified Development Code requires. Now, for the buffer yard specifically, we also have what is called the Old Town Neighborhood District Overlay Design Guidelines. And these are specific to portions of the downtown area. And these guidelines are designed specifically to conserve the character and the intent of historic building stock in the city, and also to kind of take into consideration that in these denser parts of the city, certain design patterns that may be more suburban style in their general nature may not necessarily fit the mold, if you will, in this downtown area. And so that design guideline overlay does give some exception to the code requirements specifically for those buffer yards. And so instead of requiring that 10-foot buffer yard, it does just say that when a site is developed that there should be a buffer yard. So it gives some relief to what that buffer yard would need to be. So instead of saying 10, it just recommends that there be at least a buffer yard. So there's already some flexibility in that overlay zone to take into consideration circumstances like the subject property where a property owner is looking to reconstruct and redesign a property or redevelop rather a property. And so one of the things I wanted to point out here too is just that the applicant, as they mentioned, they are electing to put this parking on the property. This is not code required parking. The zoning district that they are in does not require parking to be provided on the property. They are electing to do this in an effort to address the need for drop off and pickup traffic that will be coming to the subject property. And so that is part of why their site is showing, again, why they're proposing the parking. Let's just see here. So I believe that's all I have this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns that the commission may have. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for the staff?
No, I just think it's important and makes sense to put parking directly adjacent to the building where you have very small children exiting and entering with a parent, sometimes multiple children. So I think that trumps the need for buffers in this case.
Vice Chairman, may I please, I just also wanted to mention that Andy Butler, Executive Chairman with Cottingham and Butler, was hoping to attend the meeting this evening and was unable to. He did submit a letter that has been distributed to the commission for your consideration. I apologize, I forgot to include that as my report. Thank you.
If there's no more discussion, I would entertain a motion. Please note that we do need to pass this request, we need to be voting 4 to nothing to approve it. So just FYI. Is there a motion or from any of the commission?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to waive the site design standards with Chapter 13 of the Unified Development Code at 781 Locust Street.
Second.
Got it?
Christ,
Aye.
Lorman,
Aye.
Zucchero,
Aye.
Russell.
Aye. Oh, and that item will go to the, oh, that doesn't,
Yep.
right, never mind.
Yep.
All right, the next action item is a request from St. 1870 St. Ambrose Street to waive site design standards for the deconstruction of a couple classrooms and the placement of a parking lot. Pat?
Good evening, Pat Norton, Beasing and Associates, 1212 Locust Street. Tonight, we're here for actually 2 requests on this project. Wait, I'm sorry, there's just, is it 2 or is it just 1, Sheena?
Just the one.
Just the one?
Yep,
Okay.
just the buffer yard.
Okay. I know we talked about that too. So anyway, the intent of this project is to demolish two buildings that were former classrooms at the old St. Anthony's School. The maintenance on these buildings has gotten to the point where they need new roofs. The boilers for everything are located in there, so they have to be operational all winter long, and they're heating and minimally cooling the space, and it's just getting very costly for them. So their intent is to tear down those 2 buildings and construct a small entryway that would allow us to reconfigure access to the various floor elevations as well as this potential parking lot should it happen. After they tear down the buildings, they were hoping to make use of this space with a new parking lot. Let's see. The whole intent really is to provide a more or less a safer spot for as many cars as they really can that are on this side of Rosedale Street. Crossing Rosedale can get a little treacherous in the morning. There's quite a bit of traffic to and from Senior High School. In the winter, the street tends to ice up. There's just some issues out there with some ponding. And, you know, with the dark mornings, dark evenings, earlier and earlier, later and later in the morning, it's hard to see, and it's just trying to provide a safer place for people to park and to gain access to the church for the morning masses. You know, again, it will also add some stalls to the site overall for normal Sunday parking and what have you, but really that's the intent, is for a lot of the smaller events, people can park here, they can be dropped off, they can have covered access in and out of the building, and just make things a lot nicer for the parishioners. So anyway, in doing so, the width of the existing lot and the buildings is such that to put a parking lot in here, it takes the full width of what space is available. Again, we use the angled parking stalls, an 18-foot drive aisle, and In doing so, we were left with about a 3-foot strip along the existing alleyway. That existing alley is a permeable paver alley. Our intent would be to not impact that at all, meaning leave it as it is. There's a concrete band that runs down the alley. That's our line of demarcation. We do not want to do anything beyond that. So in doing so, I mean, we would have about a 3-foot space left between the parking and then that concrete band in the alley. And again, that's approximate, as we have not done a full site survey of this parcel yet, simply because if these waivers are not approved, chances are very good that the parking will not happen and it'll just become a green space. So anyway, that's why we're asking for the variance, is just to fit in a parking lot where we can. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Commission members, do you have any questions?
Is there any, excuse me, is there any room for like fencing or something there? Because my concern is cars are gonna park in there and there's neighbors along the other side of the alley and they haven't had to put up with lights and everything, and it's dark in the morning and I go by there every
Yep.
day, you know. Cars going to mass and stuff in the morning. I'm concerned about the neighbors on the other side of the alley.
Correct. There is, right now, as best as we can tell from aerial photographs and recorded dimensions and some things like that, there's about a 3-foot buffer in there. Now, when you pull a car into a parking stall, it's very possible that the front bumper can overhang the curb about 2 feet. So that leaves about a foot left to put in some sort of fence, should we need to.
I'm sorry, why is parking going in here? There's a giant parking lot across the street. I guess I don't understand the whole context of what's happened. Maybe sorry.
All right, if we back up a little bit, what was it, last spring, last winter? The school that was across the street, I believe that was the school, was sold, and a portion of the parking lot went with that to the owners of that, the new owners of that building. They have converted it or are converting it into apartments and housing. So in doing so, St. Anthony's lost parking across the street. So it's not necessarily that they need the parking, that they have to have the parking. The point is more, it's just a safer spot to park, as people going to church won't have to cross Rosedale, especially in the mornings for early mass in the mornings, when seniors also at the point of classes firing up, kids coming to and from school, that sort of thing.
This is for the church, where people are meeting Sunday mornings and Wednesday evenings and those times?
They're there every morning
Daily masses and whatnot, yes.
in the morning.
What time?
There's cars there when we go by at about 5:45.
I mean, did I answer your question, or do you need more information, or?
There's no other proposed redevelopment here besides the parking lot?
Right.
And Pat, does it look like there's only maybe 18 additional parking spots
About that, correct.
and 2 handicap? Is it?
Yeah, that's about what we think we can get.
Okay.
You know, again, this is all conceptual.
I mean, I'm okay with it as long as there's some kind of a fence or something that's tall enough to block out the headlights going to the neighbors.
Acceptable?
Since they've never had anything, I don't think it's fair to them to all of a sudden, oh, hey,
Yeah, I just checked with Mr. Kolb here, he's with St. Anthony's Parish, and he said a fence would be acceptable, so if you'd like to require a fence here, I mean, they'd be amenable to that, that's not a problem at all.
All right, let's see, what's next here? Sheena, would you like to make a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson Russell. Yeah, so I will
Thanks,
just,
Pat.
I will just re-outline what the applicant is requesting. So If you take a look at the aerial image we have here, you can kind of see in white here below the sketch drawing where that existing roof line is for the school, and then there was an additional addition at a different point in time back here where you see that gray roof. So as you can see, that those structures were currently built up to the property line. They're now looking to demolish those two portions and develop this parking lot to better serve their patrons, their parish members. And so with that, we at staff have done kind of a preliminary conceptual review of this. This will be subject to site design review if this were to move forward for the applicant. And so as part of their redevelopment, as mentioned, they are seeking this waiver for the buffer yard. In this instance, because the side property line does abut an alley, which is a public road or public roadway or public space, they would be required to have a 7-foot buffer yard in this location. They're looking to reduce that to 3 feet. Other site landscaping and development, or landscaping rather, would be discussed through the site plan review process, but we did not see a need based on the existing lush landscaping, mature landscaping on the property for that to be part of this request this evening. So we're very much focused on this buffer requirement along the alleyway. That's really all I have this evening. If there are any specific questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Any questions for staff?
Did we need a vote of 4 last time because we only had 4 people up here, or is that a different
We
situation?
need a vote of 4 for this one as well.
That's correct. All site design waivers require a vote of 4. And so in the event that, so I understand the concerns about the redevelopment and what is occurring on the property. We don't always have the ability to regulate and ask an applicant to do a specific type of development on a property. So we would ask the commission to look at this from the standpoint of what they are requesting a waiver from. They're not requesting an approval for a parking lot necessarily. That's a permitted use or permitted development in this location along with the church facility, but they are requesting that waiver for that landscape buffer yard. So I just would ask the commission to consider that
From
when
7 feet
specifically
to 3
evaluating.
feet? From 7 feet to 3 feet?
That's correct. Yes.
Any discussion about the request? If not, I would entertain a
I have
motion.
one question for Shay. If we want to make it so that they do have a fence, does that need to go with this then? So-
Yes, Commissioner Chris, this should be part of a condition of the approval. You know, if there were to be a motion made, I would recommend including that as part of that motion.
Okay.
Any further questions, comments? I'd entertain a motion then.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the waiver for the site design standards at 1870 St. Ambrose with the condition that they have fencing to block the headlights from the neighbors on the other side of the alley.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Christ,
Aye.
Lorman,
Nay.
Norton, oh, so excuse me, Zucchero,
Aye.
Russell.
Aye. All right, next is items from the public. Seeing none. Items from the commission? One thing that we discussed before the meeting, I think we should publicly say we're looking for an additional member. So if anybody is interested, or if you know of anyone interested, please pass them on to the city clerk's office. Items from staff.
I don't have anything specific other than I will follow up with the city clerk's office and just reiterate or revisit to see how we might be able to ensure we're advertising and for the open position. So thank you for that.
Next is adjournment.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.